Hello, ladies. Welcome back to Celebrate You, the podcast on personal development, career growth, entrepreneurship, and money for the millennial woman. So today we have a friend and a guest, of course. We've got Victoria Watson. She is a success coach and publicist, and we've got a treat for you today. So, Victoria, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to share my insights and my story with your community.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think the ladies, well, and gentlemen who listen to these will really appreciate this episode. I think it will be an interesting one. So before we go into it, can you tell us a bit about your story?
I can, yes. So I feel like I have quite an interesting story. I'm currently living in Malaga, in Spain, and I've been here for 2 years.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah. So I have to keep pinching myself every day when I wake up and I realize that after many years of wanting to actually live in Spain, that I finally made it my dream a reality. So that's an amazing place for me to be right now. And I'm from the UK originally. And I started off my career in PR and marketing, working with hospitality brands, hotels, restaurants in the UK and Europe. And I did that for many years and had some of the best times in my career. I learned a lot. I got to work with a lot of great people. And then in 2015, I left my corporate job and set up my own PR consultancy. And I moved to London and spent a couple of years living in London, working with wellness brands and founders, which was, again, an amazing experience. And I think at that point, I really I caught the bug for sort of working with entrepreneurs and founders and women that kind of, they don't have a huge team behind them. So I really enjoyed the closeness and the experience of working with women sort of one-on-one on their PR and marketing. And that kind of steamrolled into coaching, because the coaching world started to kind of pick up a few years ago. And then I decided to add an NLP practitioner certification to my coaching business because I felt like...
I saw the certification came through the post.
It did. It arrived from Canada yesterday, which is amazing. So I did that certification last year. And the reason that I did that is because the thing that I'm most passionate about is helping my clients with their visibility. And prior to undertaking this certification, I was mainly working on strategy. But I realized, and from my own experience, that obviously mindset is a huge part of setting up a business and running a business. And I was looking for another set of tools that I could bring into my business that could help people, my clients, in a much deeper way. So that's kind of where I am right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a great intro. And you touched like very important words like mindset, visibility, of course, like you did PR. And just for context for our lovely audience, like you and I worked together probably at the beginning of this year, before I started the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a coaching session. You coached me, and then we did this, I think it was called timeline therapy.
Mental emotional release.
Mental emotional release.
Yeah.
And then one of the topics that came out of that session was exactly what you just said, visibility. Mm-hmm. And you were like, oh, are you okay to be like visible? I'm like, of course I am. And then when you said like, hey, how do you feel around being like in a big magazine? And then I was like, ooh, that's scary. Yeah. And I think, oh my God. And I think that's one of the challenges that many of us may have, that is feeling. I remember in that session I said something about like, what do I have to offer? Something along those lines. Mm-hmm. Kind of like, why could I be in a magazine like that? What do I have to offer? And then I remember as I was saying that, you looked at me and you were like, come on. right?
Yeah.
But I think probably if now that I look at myself that way, I'm like, yeah, come on, what was I thinking about? But when I listen to my friends speak about themselves that way too, I'm like, girl, come on. Like you have tons to offer. So I think it's not just Monica's mindset problem, but it's a very widespread problem that we may
Yeah,
have.
absolutely. And in my experience, some of the most accomplished people that I've worked with have the biggest fears of being visible. And it's actually, because, it doesn't automatically, just because you've had an amazing career and you have a great story to tell and you've had a lot of experience in your, in your life, it doesn't necessarily mean that you feel comfortable sharing that.
That is true.
You can have someone who has achieved amazing things in their career, but that doesn't mean that they have the confidence to share that story in a magazine or on a podcast. It's quite amazing when you look at it, and that's, those are the clients that I love working with, because it's like once you make that initial shift and they have that initial breakthrough and realize that what they have to share is important and it needs to be out there, and they can help other people by stepping up. It's just amazing. It's like a snowball effect.
I'm just very curious, like why do we behave like that? Why do we think that we don't have much to say, or we don't want to talk about our story publicly?
I think a lot of it is to do with comparing ourselves to other people. So I think it's very easy to, especially when you see other people promoting themselves and other people being featured in the media, I think it's often the case that we look at them and think, oh, well, they're better than us. I'm not at the same level as they am. Who am I to do that? Who am I to even think for a second that I'm capable of doing that?
Yeah.
So I think it's so much. I have a thing called that I refer to as like a publicity mindset, which I talk to I teach my clients about. And really, having a publicity mindset is a big part of being visible. It's getting to that point where you know that you're capable of going out there and pitching yourself for features, and also that it's the confidence piece as well. It's like having that confidence that, yes, I am good enough. Yes, I do have, we all have a story to share, and there are always parts of that story that can help people and inspire people. And I think that's kind of a big part of my philosophy, is inspiring other people. So.
Yeah, because like, I guess as a listener, even like as I'm listening to you talk right now, I'm like, my mind goes like, yeah, that makes sense. But then part of me says like, how? So
Yeah.
it's kind of, I think us as humans, sometimes it's easy to understand the concept. Yes, we all have a story that if we share it, it will inspire other people. Yeah, we get that. And I should have the confidence to talk about it because I've achieved stuff. Like if we speak to ourselves from that first person. Yeah. But actually, it's not that easy to embed that thinking and really go into to believe that. I think that's the difference. One thing it's like to think, yes, I have a story. The other one is to believe that. So what's your recommendation? How do we move away from how do we move towards embedding that belief system so that then we can change?
I mean, I think the starting point is preparing yourself so that you are ready to promote yourself, put yourself out there. And I think a lot of confidence grows from that point. So, knowing kind of what your story is, what you want to talk about, what your message is, which publications would you love to be featured in, knowing what's happening in your industry, knowing, if a new story breaks tomorrow in your industry, what could you comment on? What can you bring to the table? What kind of, what expertise are you putting out there? And I think the problem with with PR and not, a lot of people wanting to do it but not understanding how to do it, I think, is getting the basics, getting the foundations in place, so being prepared, and kind of just getting into it rather than sort of looking from the outside and seeing other people doing it and thinking, oh, I can't do that. But if you just start taking small steps, and understanding how it works and what steps to take, then I think it kind of becomes easier. And I think the more you do that, the more confident you feel.
Yeah.
So once you do one interview, or you contribute to a feature, or one publication comes out and that you've been featured in, I think it sort of starts the ball rolling, and that self-belief starts shifting. And I think it's just getting started. It's like with anything in business, if you don't understand how to do something, and you teach yourself how to do it, or you start to learn how to do it, and you you just start taking that first step forwards. I think that's always where the confidence starts to build. We can't do that if we stay in the same place. It's like the famous saying about comfort, like nothing good comes from your comfort zone. And that's true in every part of life. Whatever you're talking about, if you always live within the restraints of your comfort zone, then you're never going to try anything different.
True. So if we put all this in context, so I am thinking there's two types of women / men listening to this right now. It's the ones who are focused on growing their career, because visibility is about both. It's not necessarily just PR in a big magazine or blog. It is also visibility at work, so that you can get a promotion. So we have the type of person who's looking to grow career-wise, and then we have the type of person who maybe because of the pandemic, they've always wanted to start a side gig, like a passion project. And now with lockdowns, they are like, okay, cool, I've started something. I have a few friends that either have started something or they started growing the little something that they had. But I don't hear anyone talking about their PR strategy, and I don't hear anyone talking about confidence, and I don't hear anyone talking about visibility. It's more of a, hey, how can I learn Instagram and learn my followers? No one is really talking about the stuff that you work on.
Yeah.
So if I am in one of those two categories, either career growth or passion project side gig growth, how do I get started so that I can start thinking about this? And like you said, just like jump into it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one kind of concept that would apply to both of those scenarios is personal branding. And I think whether you're in a job, or whether you're running your own business, or you have a big team, or you don't have a big team, whatever, having consciously developing your personal brand is going to be the biggest thing that helps you. So if you're in the workplace, it's like, working out, who am I? What is my message? How do I want people to perceive me? What do I need to do to elevate that brand in order for me to attract new opportunities in the workplace? I think if you're talking about a business owner, obviously most people have an online presence. So a lot of the parts, when we talk about personal branding, it's, what is your content strategy on social media? What are you putting out there? What's your personality? How do you want people to see you? What are your opinions? What's your message? So I think everything now comes back to personal branding, and I don't think it's something that we can avoid. We all have to be visible in some way. We don't have to, obviously that has to be in line with our values and our vision, but we can't avoid being visible, because the business world for sure. I mean, every industry is a busy industry. So to make your mark and stand out, you have to have that strong position behind you. And that's, that's why I always say to people that, you are your best asset, because there isn't anyone else, there's no one else doing what you're doing or doing it. You can have a billion people doing the same thing, but every single person is doing it differently, and they're doing it differently, not just from a strategic point of view, but because of who they are, because we're all, we are all individuals. And I think learning how to tap into that and learning how to really leverage your uniqueness is an important thing. And that will be the thing that supports you in moving forwards, whether it's in your career or in your business.
Yeah. And just to follow up on that, like personal branding, it's also scary because it kind of implies that A, I need to brand myself.
Yeah.
And then B, it implies that I need to scream and shout and promote myself everywhere I go, which may or may not be right. That may not be the right connotation of personal branding, but there's some sort of like, you need to promote yourself.
Yeah.
So how do we work around personal branding such that it's not that scary and it's a little bit more efficient?
I think the phrase personal branding has become a bit of a buzz term, and I know it can scare some people because not everybody wants to be the loudest person in the room. But I also have a firm belief that you don't have to be the loudest person in the room. You just need to know how to, package up what you've got and get it out there.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I honestly believe that. And, I work with obviously a lot of clients that aren't like that are introverted, that aren't, like they don't want to be out there doing everything. It's not about that. You can still build a personal brand in a conscious way and in a way that feels good to you. And the thing is, if it doesn't feel good to you, then you're going to fall at the first hurdle.
Yeah.
So it has to feel good. And then all promotion has to feel good. Everything that you put out there to promote yourself has to feel good to you. Otherwise, it doesn't feel authentic.
Yeah, that's a very good distinction, because personal branding, you said something along the lines of it is taking what you've got and then just packaging it nicely and putting out there, rather than, I think a lot of people don't like being the loudest person in the room. Yeah. You don't want to be like the loudest person in the room, actually. You just want to like be you and have online presence and have success. Right? Yeah. But it's like use your own assets to attract the right opportunities that fit you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people now are not bowing down to the pressure of being seen and heard, having to be everywhere, And that's another thing that I believe in. I don't think you have to be everywhere to be successful. You don't have to be everywhere to build your brand. You just have to have a belief system and a strategy and a plan that kind of is really aligned with who you are and just staying true to yourself. I think once we start sort of like bowing down to the pressures of, everyone else is doing this or everyone else is doing that, it's kind of like, I don't know about you, but that just makes me.
I don't want to do that.
It doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel good to me.
No. No, exactly. So then, how do we balance the concepts of personal branding and promotion? Then we have things like confidence and visibility, and the fears of not wanting to be the loudest in the room. How do we balance all of that in a smart way such that I can be in my quiet introvert? I'm very introvert, by the way. People don't realize that, but I have a strong introvert side too. But it's like not me, but in general, like how can we tap into our introvert side that we don't want to be like making all that noise, but at the same time, being present in the online world. How do we bring all that together into action or strategy?
I mean, I think when we're talking about strategy, obviously there has to be an end goal. So it really does depend on what what are you trying to achieve? Are are you creating an online strategy because you're trying to find new clients, or are you, you have to sort of work out what is the end goal. But I think it's, not bowing down to that pressure that I have to be on Instagram every day, or, there's so much advice out there on what you should be doing. And it's almost like my advice would almost be to do the polar opposite of what everyone else is telling you to do, It's almost like cutting out the noise and just really going back to yourself and what what is your vision and what do you want to do and how do you want to do it? And I don't think, this is why I'm kind of against sort of like what we call cookie cutter strategies, that tell you if you follow these 5 steps, this is what you'll achieve. But, like I said, we're all completely different people, and we all have completely different belief systems and completely different views on life and how we want to do things. And that's why, in my opinion, those strategies don't work. And I think a lot of it comes back to just getting really connected to yourself and just listening to your own intuition about, what is the next right step for you.
It's such a good point, because you're right. There's a lot of noise out there.
There is a lot of noise.
I don't know. I'm trying to learn a little bit of Instagram and a little bit of LinkedIn, but I'm focusing more on LinkedIn. And I follow 2 people, and sometimes they just say like the opposite things. And I'm like, oh, who should I follow? These are the other. I'm like, just do whatever you want, because like no one really knows what's going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's why, ultimately, just trying things and testing them, and then, redirecting from there if you need to is actually a really good strategy, especially with something like social media and creating content. It really is about just trying what works for you, or what's working for your audience, like what is building engagement, and what, just trying new things as you go along, rather than trying to replicate what someone else has kind of told you to do. I mean, obviously there are certain bits of advice that will be applicable to everybody, but ultimately it all comes back to you really, and staying true to yourself.
Yes, that is such a good point, because I don't know if you have this perception, but recently I've noticed there's a lot of pressure in social media. Exactly, from all these coaches and marketeers. There's so much advertising as well that you feel pressure to succeed. And success is defined as, the number of followers, the number of sales that you do. And it's more of a, hey, what happened with the fun of doing the videos? Only for fun.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of like, I felt recently that there is a lot of pressure to succeed.
Yeah, and I think obviously we're in a very strange time right now after the past year, and I think a lot of people obviously have been made redundant and are retraining, and a lot of people are actually retraining to be coaches and experts within the sort of wellness industry. There seems to be more people kind of moving into that. So I think what I've noticed is that the industry is becoming more and more crowded, but I think I do still firmly believe that everyone has their place in the industry. And it's just remembering, what you have to offer and what you bring to the table, and almost always going back to, the people that you help, because that's ultimately why, we coach, and why we have this role is to help other people. So I know something that helps me often is if I find my mindset's getting a bit, like I'm focusing more on what other people are doing, and, they're doing this and they're doing that, and why am I not at that level? It's like, no, you have to go back to your why. Like, why am I doing this? And sort of keep reconnecting to that, because that's way more important than what the other person's doing in, wherever, and how many followers they've got, or how much engagement they've got, It's like the old phrase, stay in your own lane. I think there's never been a more important time to just stay in your own lane, Stay
in your own lane. That's so important. Yeah. Oh, that's such a wonderful question. Not only stay in your own lane, but how do you find your own lane?
Oof.
Sorry. It's like it came as a moment of, oh yeah, stay in your lane. But the most important thing is like
that's
find
a beautiful
your
question.
lane.
I think, I think for me, it's like what lights you up is the starting point. How do you find your own lane? Well, you find your own lane by working out what your purpose is, what lights you up, and that leads you to your lane. That leads you to the path that you're going to take. So I think it all starts from that. What makes you get out of bed in the morning? What do you love doing? If you're kind of struggling to work that out, I think it's important to just go back to the basics and work out, what do you want to do?
Excites you?
What excites you? And what do you want to do for the next potentially, 10, 20 years or whatever, however old you are or whatever. But that's, it's going back to that. What is the thing that lights you up?
That's such an important question. And I think many of us, including myself, and you went through this journey, that's why I'm asking. Like many of us, we have a job, like a corporate job, let's say. And then we are like, but that is the thing that lights me up. And that's how a passion project starts most of the time. Like, oh yeah, I have my job. And on the side, I do this thingy that I like. But there's a point where either we decide that the thing that lights us up is a hobby, or we turn it into a passion project and we really don't care about income. Or at some point we're like, oh, like you did, leave job security and turn this into a business as such. Rather than asking on the how to do it, because the how probably will be like, oh, you need to have like to think about what's your proposition and da 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 da. But it's more about what's the mindset needed to do that transition.
I mean, I think, for me, when I was thinking about this the other day, and I think I know I ignored my intuition for many, many years. I was really unhappy in my corporate job, and I had been for at least a year, and I ignored my intuition until I couldn't ignore it anymore, and I had to make the move. And there was so much, there was a lot of fear there because I didn't trust that if I made the leap that the net would appear on the other side. I didn't believe it would, but actually when I did, it did. And I'm not saying it's as easy as that. You obviously have to have a plan in place. You can't leave the security of a job if, you don't have
savings.
Exactly. You need to you need to be sensible about it. But I think there's also that piece of listening to what's going on inside and acting on that, because life is kind of too short at the end of the day. And I think what a lot of people I hope have learned in the past year with the pandemic is that we can reroute our lives, we can take different paths, we don't have to stay where we are. There are other options out there if you're not happy in the role that you're in at the moment. So in terms of mindset, I think it really is, getting connected to yourself, understanding what you want, understanding how you want your life, your work-life balance to look, looking at all these different things. What are the changes that you want to make? I think is that answering the question, or did I go off on it?
I think so. Right. Yeah. Well, because it's a very complex thinking process that goes behind the thinking process of building a business out of a passion project.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I feel like I've taken so many risks in the past couple of years. I've had a lot of fear about moving abroad. I had a lot of fear about, was it going to be possible for me to move from the UK and still have my business? And I think, every time I've taken a leap of faith, it's kind of worked out in some way, not always exactly how I wanted it to, but I I don't think I would be where I am now if I hadn't taken those risks. You know, if I'd stayed if I'd stayed where I felt comfortable, I would still be, you know, where I was however many years ago. I wouldn't be where I am now. And I think a lot of the time when we feel something when we have a lot of discomfort that comes up about a decision, it's almost like that's the calling to keep pushing through it. That's not, you know, that's not the calling to stop there and play small. That to me, and you know, the experiences that I've had, it's like if it feels uncomfortable and it feels difficult, it's almost like jump in, just jump in, you know,
just go and do it.
Just do it. Because, you know, the rewards on the other side are going to be, you know, even if it's just like increased confidence in what you're capable of doing and achieving, you know, that's a huge thing, you know. Awesome.
And you touched on a really good point about like fears and uncomfortableness. And previously you touched on intuition. So sometimes I find it not difficult, but I ponder on what I'm feeling or thinking. Is that a fear that it's kind of like taking over my head, or is that my intuition that's protecting me from something? How do you go around that? What's your view?
I mean, I always sort of trust my gut instinct. I don't know, I get very strong reactions to situations and people, and I tend to kind of trust that, you know, over, I think I can differentiate now between, I don't know, you sort of feel it, don't you? Feel that real, I don't know, it's like a draw inside you, kind of like feel, you know, when your intuition is telling you something's right or wrong.
Yeah, you kind of know, right?
Yeah, you do.
Yes, when you get out of your head, I think that's it. Yeah. You have to get out of your head, and then you know.
Yeah. And I think that's why
you know if it's a real do not do it, it's danger, or if it's hey, you were just in your head, just do it.
Yeah, I think if you really, you know, this is why, you know, meditation is so important, because I think when you actually quieten the mind down, you become more able to really listen to what, you know, what I call your sort of inner, you know, your inner navigation system, you know, which is basically guiding you. But there's obviously a big difference. That's why we say living from the heart and not from the head.
Yeah.
You know, because yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So I'm like, I was thinking something and I forgot about it. but it goes along the lines of, so we said intuition and fears, and then at some point, you know, when your intuition is telling you to do something and you're still scared. How, and you just touched on meditation too. How do we not go back to that scary place and instead maintain that trust and belief in ourselves that it will work out for us, not for the neighbor, nor my friend, nor the other 1,000 people that have done this, but for me, who I feel in my head, oh, it will not work for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the best sort of techniques that I've learned is reframing my thoughts. So if I am telling myself I can't do something, you know, how can I reframe that to a more positive outcome? So, oh, it's not going to work. Well, actually, what if it does work? What's the best case scenario rather than the worst case scenario? And I think that just making that subtle mindset shift can really help you to live more boldly, actually. You know, and not stay in that place of like, oh, I'm never going to be good enough to do this, or I can't achieve that, or, you know, this is too much for me. It's like, no, what is the best possible outcome? What if you just did the best that you could?
I love those two questions. What is the best possible outcome? Yeah. What if you did the best that you could? Yeah. Then you could get the best possible outcome.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, you can only ever do your best. Like, that's the best you can do.
Oh, that's such a good point. So, but there is there may be some fears that because we're familiar with what we know, e.g. work, corporate job, let's say. We know we're good at our jobs. But given that we haven't done the thing that we do in our passion project, whether that's knitting. Oh, today a friend sent me the pictures of her Instagram account with all this beautiful knitting thing. I'm like, wow, she's an artist. But she doesn't do it for, like she's stuck in that dilemma as well. I'm like, you should do something about this. But then, what was I going to say? How do we, like at work, we are familiar with what we're good at, and we know that if we give our best, the project will succeed. That's a fact. You can count on it. But given that the other project, we don't have the experience, we kind of doubt that our best is going to be the same best that in a company. Because in a company, you have colleagues and you have resources. Well, if you're doing your knitting business, it's just you and your knitting business, and who's going to buy from you.
Yeah.
How do we balance that monkey brain monster?
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge shift because I think a lot of people start these side businesses as a place of comfort and respite from their everyday jobs. I think, if you're setting up a side hustle, for example, that's like your friend with a knitting business that's probably a million miles away from what she's actually doing day to day, I think it almost becomes like a nice place to escape to. And to use that and relax and use that different side of her brain, that the creative side. It's probably just like a big breath of fresh air to be doing something completely different. I mean, I think it depends if you're not actually making an income out of your side business or your side hobby. I think that can be the biggest block because you kind of get used to, like, this is what I need to do to create an income. This is the safe way to create an income. This is what I'm used to doing. So I need to continue doing that, because to go from there to starting from scratch with no experience is almost too much.
Daunting.
Yeah. But I think that's why it goes back to making sure that you are ready to make that transition. You're financially able to. Yeah. And I think anybody that tells you that you can just go from here, you can leave that safety and go and do something completely different, I think it's unrealistic. It really is just unrealistic. So I think preparing and planning is a start, is always the starting point to give you that that safety net. But I feel like once you actually make that move and you start that new project, I think again it comes back to the every little step you take forwards, the more your confidence grows in what you're capable of doing. I think a lot of the time it's just when we stay in one place, we can't, there's no expansion. There has to be some element of taking a risk. There has to be, even if it's a calculated risk, we still have to take risks in life. Otherwise we stay where we are.
Amazing. I think that's like a beautiful way to, like, you just summarized everything. Because it's like a mix of having the confidence. First is realizing that it's like, hey, this is my lane. This is what I want to do. Then believing in you that it's like, yeah, I can, if I give my best, I can do it. However, it's not magic. So you need to have a plan, especially like financially speaking. If you're planning to leave your job and focus on the side project, then it's like, have a financial plan that enables you to do that. And as you take actions, then your confidence, coming back to the beginning, it's kind of like the circle completes. Then it's like, then you have the confidence and then it keeps moving a little bit more. And the beautiful thing that you said at the end is you have to take risks, because if you stay where you are, there's no expansion.
Yeah. And it's so true. And I think all of these things I've learned from my own journey, of like, I know that the times when I've procrastinated and not listened to my intuition telling me what my next natural step would be, I know that those are the times when I've been unhappy and disconnected and frustrated. because I'm not listening to what, I'm being told is the next step for me,
Yeah.
And giving into fear. And I think, I think just trusting. I mean, that's something that I'm really focusing on in my life now, is trusting that, what is right and what is the next thing for me will come to me. And I don't need to force things. I think, just to live in a life of flow,
More flow.
Just flow.
I'm a big fan of flow. Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I don't prepare these episodes. It's just like flow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. So in the spirit of flow, I liked like the two concepts at the end. One that it's like trusting, just like trust that it will happen. And the previous one that it was on expansion. So as we kind of like close the episode, like wrap it up, what are your thoughts on trust and expansion?
I think with trust, especially as I've already referred to kind of the pandemic and how difficult things have been over the past year. And I think it's almost like the harder things are, the more we have to lean into our self, and trusting ourselves, and trusting that we are capable of navigating things. We're resilient. I think that's something that I've learned a lot in the past years, that I'm way more resilient than I thought I was. And actually, that's a good thing to know. It's a good thing to be able to trust yourself and trust that you can navigate through life no matter what's thrown at you. And also, to trust that, I'm not a hugely spiritual person, but I do believe in the universe, and I do believe that, we are connected to something bigger than we are. And I do think that you have to trust that life will unfold the way it's supposed to, and things will come into your path at the right time, and things will come out of your life at the right time and be replaced by something better. And I think trusting in that, there's always going to be, there is something better out there. If something, if you don't succeed at one thing, that's because, there's something else coming along. And that's definitely something that I sort of say to myself every day, and something that keeps me pretty grounded, really.
Trust.
Yeah. Just trusting. Yeah. I think you have to, it's really,
otherwise you go crazy.
Exactly. You have to be, you have to be anchored, and you have to be anchored to something, and you have to stay grounded, and I think that's why, self-care is so important, and working on your own self-love is so important.
Yeah. And yes, that is like so true. And it kind of triggered monkey brain, but at the same time, like to put everything together, that we started with visibility, and then we're finishing with trust. And then the monkey brain in between would say, hey, if I want to take my passion project and make it into a business, let's say my friend that's knitting stuff, or whomever, whichever business it is, one of the fears that will make us doubt ourselves rather than trust ourselves and trust the universe is, and we may recognize it with this word or other words, but it's like identity. We do not see ourselves. We see our identity is the one of a great employee, the one of a great team player, the one of a great high performer, or whatever it is at work that we do. But our identity is not that of that great self-employed person that can maintain herself and her family with her side business.
Yeah.
How? And actually, given that that's not our identity, if we come back to visibility, if we start putting ourselves out there with that new persona or that new identity, who we don't feel we are, then it's the fear of failing publicly or ridicule, that it's like, it's kind of like the monkey brain comes into that, puts it in your face. So how do you think we can use the concept of visibility
Mm.
plus challenging our own internal identity images,
Mm.
and then trusting that everything's going to be okay.
I mean, I think the first thing about identity is obviously a lot of the times we are influenced by what other people are saying we are and what our identity is, you know, like how other people view us and what they think our brand is, so to speak. And I think shifting away from that and, you know, thinking about what do you want your identity, like who are you? You know, what is your identity? What are you all about? What is your, you know, what are your passions? You know, how do you want the world to see you rather than how other people see you? And I think that's quite common, not just in our professional lives, but in our personal lives as well, because I think we get not put into, maybe like often put into like a box by people, even our family, our friends, you know, they say, oh, you're this, this, and this. And it's like sometimes we can get overwhelmed by what other people think our identity is.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. It's not even our own identity.
Mm. And
it
I
is
think
the identity that others think that we have, and then they portray that on us, and we're like, oh.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of getting away from that and just, you know, because I think it can feel quite overwhelming and consuming when, you know, because everyone has opinions about who we are and what we do, and you know, and categorizing us in in different ways. And I think it's almost like you have to sort of disconnect from that, especially when you're trying to stay in your own lane. You know, and like you said before, when you're trying to stay on your own path, then you can't be too influenced by what other people think of you and what you're doing. You have to stay true to yourself.
Oh, that's such a beautiful how do I call it, energy wording wisdom.
Thank you.
You have to just like stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's how everything comes to full circle. The visibility thing, the confidence, the staying on your lane, the trusting. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as one guiding principle.
Yeah.
Stay true to yourself.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the thing with visibility is that it has become a bit of a buzzword. And I think, again, it often, I think, feels daunting to people because there's so much pressure around there, like you said, to do everything and be everywhere. But it's like with all of these things, it's like with personal branding, visibility, all these things that can feel high pressured and like, oh, I have to be doing X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, you don't have to do X, Y, and Z. You just have to get reconnected to your purpose and your why and who you want to help. And, you know, why are you here? What do you want to do? Who are the people that you want to help? And just focus on them. Just focus on doing the good work and focus on helping people.
Beautiful. And then you should not, if you do that, then the fears of performing or visibility and all that should kind of like fade away in the background.
Yeah,
because you're in your lane.
You're in your lane, exactly. You're just doing what you're doing. Yeah. You know, you're doing what you came here to do, and you're not worrying about what other people are doing. And I know it's easier said than done, but I think in my experience, whenever I feel like I'm hitting those hurdles, it's just coming back to myself and thinking, you know, I am doing it the way I'm doing it. And the right people will want to work with me because of who I am and what I have to offer and the different way I have of offering that to the next person. I think that's why personality is so important, because that's, you know, that's the one thing we have that is so unique is our personality and how we come across. And, you know, that's why there's somebody for everybody.
Exactly. And personality is not something that you can craft in your personal brand. Otherwise, it is fake.
Exactly.
Yeah. Personality is just being...
It's just being you.
Who you are.
Yeah.
It's just being you. And that's it.
Yeah. It's just being you, unfiltered and,
and trusting.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, it's been an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
As usual, kind of like went through unexpected
I love that.
Unexpected roots.
I love that. We start off here and we end up like way over here. Like, yeah, this is brilliant.
Yes, exactly. But that's the fun out of doing this. Any final words that you may have for the listeners?
Any final words? I think, with the sort of topics that we've covered, really it's just reiterating, working, if you're struggling right now to work out your next step, just go back to what lights you up and what, just sit with yourself, whenever you have these times of fear or doubt, is really just coming back, getting connected to yourself and listening to what your intuition is telling you is the next right move for you.
Amazing. Having said that, it's been a pleasure having you in the show.
Thank you.
Amazing that technology worked well as
well. Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Victoria.
My pleasure.
I'm sure we'll speak with you again very soon.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Speak next week. Bye-bye.